My name is Ryan, also known as Rezial, and welcome to a new type of video series where I hope to get a look at important hobby tools that a lot of us use in model hobby, Warhammer, Gunpla, military modeling, whatever have you, to work on the projects that we love, and hopefully you will find it useful. This will be something that I would like to do periodically, not every week, but just on some type of recurring basis, so let's take a look. So today we're going to be looking at the PN-125 from God Hand. Most people think of these high-end Japanese expensive nippers that God Hand creates that I have some pics of here from their advertisements up on the screen in the $50 to $60 range. This is comparable to also Games Workshop's Citadel tools in as far as the price goes, and these are also very popular. Today I actually want to compare these with my super inexpensive nippers that I've been using for a very long time. This is not sponsored by God Hand in any way. This is just something that I've picked up out of a need, and so we want to take a look at. The PN-125 comes in a package like this, out of Japan, and I, on first inspection, have really enjoyed handling them. The spring action is solid. The point is much finer than I'm used to, and the profile is narrower. We'll get a look at that here in a little bit in comparison to the less expensive versions. The grip is a little bit different than I'm used to, but it is quite comfortable. The construction is very similar to these very inexpensive nippers that I have from Harbor Freight here in the US. And I expect that anyone anywhere else can probably find a similar type or quality of nipper in some place local to them. These type use the very simple spring action. I have two pair because the first pair actually broke from being worn out after years and years and years of use. And the second pair actually I had damaged by using improperly, so I had ground them down, so I still have the first pair, but I needed to get a replacement set. And that's what led me to start this whole project here. Comparing the two, they are made very similarly, and they are rated to cut plastic models only. I'm going to actually use them on some Citadel kits here, some leftover parts that I have. There are people that will tell you that you probably shouldn't use the God Hand version on the Citadel sprue, but we're going to test that out. You can see my Harbor Freight version that run about $4 US are cut through that just fine. And now actually the God Hand, the 125s, again, super easy. I'm using very little pressure to do this, and that's through the main part of the sprue. Also, I'd say the cut is very similar as well. Switching over to actually taking out parts, you can see where I put the Harbor Freight nippers underneath. They have less clearance, but they still cut out the parts just fine. I've been using these nippers on every single model kit that I have cut out for 10 years. Now for the God Hand, they will do a very similar job. They just give you a lot more clearance, and they cut through super smooth. But really, if I was to be honest, there's not a lot of difference in the feel. There's some minor differences in the feel with how they cut, but it's not an excessive amount. Very, very similar. Besides the fact that I don't have a spring left over in my originals. And just comparing the cuts from the part there, very, very similar for what you get. Now I just wanted to go through and actually cut out some parts with the God Hand nippers just repetitively, just to see how they felt, if there was any change going through the Citadel plastic. Again, I was actually told by people that they don't like to use these God Hands of any type on Citadel kits. I don't know if that's everybody's experience, but honestly, I think that it's just a little bit too cautious. They seem to go through just fine. They're not that delicate. Maybe if this was the $60 version, they would be too narrow, but these seem just fine. Going through on the parts with the arm and really having no issues at all. I'm using very minimal pressure and they're going through just fine. I think the edge is really helping out in this case. Now, I wanted to show a situation where I think that these God hands are actually going to work out way better in a lot of cases, because there are some kits that will have parts where the clearance is very narrow. And this is the newer Angron kit, and I went and actually found an example of like what that is. And so you can see here with this belt section, there are very narrow connection points to the sprue for the actual part. Normally, when I use my very just perfectly adequate cheapo $4 Harbor Freight nippers, they will cut the parts fine, but you can see here the clearance will become an issue if I want to avoid damaging some of the details like the point there. I can force that in there and actually cut that part with these nippers or any other fatter sort of tip nose nippers, but it's not ideal. And the same thing here, if I want to even get into that space, I'm going to be right up against the edge of the part, and that could cause deformities on parts of the plastic in the model kit that I don't want to show. Now, when I take the finer point of these God hands, they're going to naturally go in there just a lot better. I mean, you can just, common sense will tell you, but we're actually going to take a look at it here. I can get them in there and even get a little bit of extra clearance, and they go through just fine, super smooth. Citadel plastic is not particularly hard to cut through. It's relatively soft. It's just how dense is it and how hard do you have to press the nippers. But these are cutting through super nicely. Maybe that's because the edge is brand new, but time will tell. I'm actually able to get extra clearance on this bit, and that allows me to use best practice there. And then after the fact, I get basically what I would expect to see with proper technique for cutting out parts, so you don't overcut anything, but I'm also saving those points. Now, moving on to what God Hand is very well known for, and something that I also do, which is Gunpla kits. And I've got a Barbatos 6th form that I've been waiting to pop out and get to work at. The Bandai kits are a little bit different for people who only do 40K. The plastic is different from Games Workshop's. The sprue are more delicate. It's a little bit finer quality as far as like the techniques they can use. Also, this is a secondary bit that's a little bit more rubbery that's called polycap, and polycaps are used in like high-grade kits for making joints and things. So I'm going to cut out one from each with both pair. And actually all this is really going to end up showing is kind of the universality between these two, but pretty much that they're both usable. The main difference with these Bandai kits is you will find some that have even tighter clearance than some of the GW kits, in which case the God Hand are going to, again, do that part better. Moving over to the other primary sprue, this is some of the inner frame for the Gunpla model itself. So I'm going to cut two of the actual feet parts out. Those are actually feet for the mech. First with my cheapo $4 ones. And we get perfectly manageable nubs from that. And then we're going to go in with these God Hands and do the same. The pieces here, it's very much like cutting parts from a Citadel kit in this case, for anybody that's not used to these, or if you do any like military or space modeling or anything like that, traditional modeling. These are a little bit more like that. The plastic's not exactly the same. Bandai's plastic is also kind of nice and buttery in a lot of cases. It can vary between sprue to sprue. But the cuts here, I will say, with the God Hand are a little bit cleaner. Now again, the edge is brand new as opposed to my previous pair, but it is what it is. Now, this is a thing you can do. You can often go back and make a secondary flush cut, which I'm going to do with the God Hand here to test it out. And they come out pretty smooth. That actually helps out. You can just go in with a file instead of having to file a ton. Now, I'm actually still going to do the same thing here with the less expensive nippers. And I would say, when I get done with this, it comes out very good. It's not quite as smooth. So definitely not quite as good, but it still does work. And so really what it comes down to is For these very inexpensive nippers that I have used a ton for many, many years, are they good? Absolutely. I highly recommend these, and I'm still going to use them. I'm going to keep them for $4. Now, the God Hands, they feel better. They're nicer. They have, you know, they're not the hyper expensive ones. These are run anywhere from about $12 to $15. I found. I got these for about $12 myself. Are they good? Is the construction is very similar to the $4 ones for 3 times the price. I mean, when you talk about it like that, maybe not for 3 times the price, but they're definitely good and they fill a need, and I think I'm going to use them a lot. The spring construction, as I'm showing here, is quite a bit nicer. I think it's more durable. You can overextend it, and as long as you don't force it back in, if you help it back out, you're probably not going to wear out the spring too bad, and they'll just be just fine. So would I recommend the God Hand PN 125s? Yes. Absolutely. I'm liking these so far. I'm going to do a lot of work with these and let you guys know how they're doing, probably on State of the Table, so keep an eye out for that, but that does get the 2 thumbs up as well. Very good nippers. And I would say both of these, you know, are good things to have. And finally, I've never tried the Citadel nippers, but they're $50. And I've never tried the more expensive God Hands, but those are also $40 to $60. So let me know in the comments below if you want me to give those a try. Maybe one day, but I'll have to pay for them with my own money. So that's just a thing that we may have to look into later. But that is it for today, y'all. Hope you got some enjoyment out of this. If you did, please hit the like button, share with friends, subscribe to the channel for more content, and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date. Bye for now.